Hi. So day 3 of the Manchester test is over, and the momentum which was in favor of England yesterday now has transformed itself into a tsunami. It is just not a momentum, it's a tsunami in favor of England, and barring a real disaster or a miracle or a exceptionally great performance, legendary or memorable performance by India, this test seemed to be moving towards an English victory, and if they manage to win the match, then they will win the series also. So at the end of the day 3, England seems to be poised at the brink of a mammoth victory against India. Only weather or a fantastic or unbelievable performance by India, both in the third and the fourth innings, can really change the match into an Indian victory, which looks unlikely, but miracles have happened in the past, so we can still give some odds in favor of India, but that odds should be really minuscule now. The day started with India actually changing the leather because England were 225 for 2, and they were having Joe Root, their best batter, at the crease, and who was supported well by Pope, and it seemed that they would be carrying away with the momentum unless India managed to use the morning session, and hopefully there would be some weather conditions that would favor Indian seam bowler. There would be some cloud cover, and then under that overcast condition, maybe India would be able to pick up 3-4 wickets with the initial spell from Bumrah and Siraj, and then the game could actually be pulled back. But nothing of this sort happened. India continued to be having a little bit of bad luck also, because the day was the best day for batting in terms of the weather conditions. It was bright sunshine, there was not a iota of cloud, there was no seam movement, and a 46 over ball was soft enough, and the batters on the other side were there who were like Root and Pope were well settled by their stand yesterday, and they were really ready to punish India, and they ensured there was no reckless shot. They were not going to give a wicket, even though Indian bowling was much better today than yesterday, because yesterday was absolutely rubbish and atrocious, but today they gathered their senses and they tried to learn from yesterday's mistakes, and they tried to manage with a good line and length and try to attack the English batters. But then there was hardly anything on the pitch, and Root and Pope were the kind of batters who would not give an inch on their day on a flat wicket. And Root, it became a memorable day for him, and he ensured that with his stay he not only contributed in terms of taking England to a position of invincibility, but also broke all sorts of records. He scored his 38 ton, he scored a 150, and in the process he went on to surpass 3 great batters just in one day. It was Rahul Dravid, Jack Callis, and Ricky Ponting who were in the top 4 of the all-time test scorers list. They were all beaten by or surpassed by Joe Root, who rightfully went into the second position now. And now the only man ahead of him is the legend, is the great man Sachin Tendulkar. And going by the age factor, the number of tests he has taken to achieve and reach the score where he has reached now, it looks highly likely that he will break the record of Sachin Tendulkar, which 2-3 years back seemed unbreakable ever in the history of Test cricket. But now Joe Root seems to be the man who is going to do it, because he has age in his side, and he has also played much lesser test matches at this stage compared to what Sachin has done. And even though Sachin had a much earlier debut, but Sachin had an average played 8 test matches per year, because Indian governing bodies priority over test cricket is not as much as what ECB does. So Root has been playing almost 12 tests a year. So at this rate, he should take 2.5 years to 3 years to surpass Sachin Tendulkar if he maintains his form, which at the moment is at the peak actually, and if barring any God forbidden any kind of injury or any kind of disaster, he should be able to beat or surpass Sachin's record in 2.5 years to 3 years time. And once he does that, then it would be almost impossible to see anybody breaking his record, because now with T20 and ODI coming in full flow, and Test cricket being pushed out of the priority in most of the countries, there aren't many players who are pure Test class players or Test batters. There are many who are actually giving priority to playing all the Test matches, and there aren't enough Test matches also happening in the calendar for anybody to play nearly 200 Test matches to beat or surpass Joe Root's record as and when if he manages to do. And if he fails, then Sachin's record maybe would be there intact for the rest of the mankind or for the rest of the civilization. But that would be for some other day. Let's get back into the day and at the Manchester and the test, and where England has completely grabbed the initiative and have grabbed the game by the scruff of its neck. They were very compact, they were having a great plan. They allowed the first session as a session of consolidation because they were still 133 runs behind. Root and Pope played carefully but without getting bogged down. They still managed to score a fairly brisk rate, and they managed to score 107 runs in 28 overs in the first session, which was a pretty decent run because they didn't get separated. So England was in a much more comfortable position at the end of the first session with just 2 wickets down. So in the next session, they started taking a little bit of more risk and taking a little bit of more initiative, and then it ended up again as a fruitful session where they lost a couple of wickets, but they again played 28 overs and they added around 101 runs. And in the third session, which was the longest because of the half an hour extra one gets because of the poor run rate over rate in the day, India bowled 33 overs in which England managed to score 111 runs. And yes, they lost 3 wickets, but then by that time wickets were still not enough for India to dismiss the entire England team. So England is still only 7 wickets down. There is still Ben Stokes, who is hobbling but has come back to bat after being retired out because of the cramps, and he had ensured that he has held the one end up. And then Liam Dawson, who is actually playing as a spin bowler but is a great all-rounder because he has 18 first-class centuries and 56 50s, and he showed the exhibition of that kind of batting while negotiating so comfortably against Bumrah, Siraj and Jadeja, and he is very much established there at the pitch. And if Stokes comes back tomorrow with a proper physical fitness to play all the shots and running at his peak, and then Dawson, the form he is in, they can actually hope to have a much fruitful or a better partnership. And then they have Braden Cars to follow, who has had a 50 in the Lord's Test. So they have enough batters. Out of the 4 batters who are going to bat, out of them 3 are actually proper batters who can contribute even though they are bowlers. So they are on the verge of reaching a 200 run lead. They are 186 runs ahead, and if the last 3 wickets, bare minimum, if they can add another 30-40 runs, that means they would be 220 runs ahead, and that would be almost as good as saying that India would be batted out of this test match. Then there would be only 2 options left, or 2 possible outcomes left, either a India loss or defeat or a draw. And going by the uneven bounce on the pitch and ball also keeping low and turning, and then there's still some seam movement because of the kind of when there's a new ball. So all the English bowlers can come into the party, including Dawson in the third innings, and England by that kind of a lead would ensure that it's India whose third innings would be eventually a 4th innings of the match, because England would not get a chance to bat again. So either England would be able to dismiss in the remaining sessions of the 4th day and the entire 5th day, then they would have enough time to put pressure and dismissing India. If they don't, at best India can then hold on for a draw. There would be no option left for India to go past the lead and then put up a good enough total to dismiss England for the in the 4th innings. So the best possible strategy that England could have, they have executed it, and they have executed it brilliantly. Their objective was to just bat once because of the uneven bounce and the dry nature of the pitch, and they have almost done that. And if tomorrow in the first session they bat for quite a substantial amount of time and add another even 40-50 runs, they would have achieved their target, because then that would leave India to bat for 2 sessions tomorrow, and there will be 3 more sessions on the day 5, and in those time India can at best try to play for a draw, but scoring enough runs to put a target, and again that target should be defendable, that looks little unlikely, and England would be pretty safe. And then once that safety is achieved, they can really put pressure on India in the 3rd innings with their bowling, and they would have fit and fresh Archer, Works, Cars, and even Stokes if he's fit enough, and then Dawson, who to put pressure on the 4th day and 5th day pitch at Manchester. So actually a day which has now defined the match decisively, it seems, in favor of England, and it's now looks like either England will win the test and win the series here itself without depending on the fifth test, or it can at best end in a draw. In that case, India has to still do the chasing in the fifth test and try to win it desperately to at least draw the series, and that would be also looking very very tough, because just imagine this test match, Bumrah and Siraj have bowled around 54 overs. So that is a humongous amount of bowling, and Siraj has not had any break in this series, and he has been playing like a workhorse for the fourth test so far, four tests. And even if you play him in the fifth test, and he may commit because of his love for and passion for the game, he would be a spent force, and it is also visible to some extent in this innings where he has been looking like a spent force at times. So even if you force him to play, it would be not the same Bumrah most likely, because the next test would be after just 3 to 4 days of the fourth test. So there would be not enough gap, and Bumrah most likely would be rested, because there was a chance taken with him after that third test where he played, because he was supposed to play 3 tests and he's now already played 3 tests, and now it would look impossible for him to again play the fifth test with just 3 days rest after this test, because he has already bowled 28 overs in this test. So without Bumrah, with Siraj exhausted, Rishabh Pant almost certain to miss out because of his injury, so it looks a very very depleted Indian side, and it looks huge losses for India in the fifth test. So hoping for India to win that test looks a really far-fetched thing right now. But the first thing for India would have to be to draw the test match at best, so that they can have some hope to win that test in the fifth test and to at least draw the series. But that looks again a very very tough thing. And now coming back to how this position India has found itself in, or how England has managed to reach such a formidable position, the answer is simple. It has massively to do with the team selection. There was already lot of talk about the bizarre team selection that Gautam Gambhir and Shubman Gill have opted for in the previous test, but they were lucky that last test it worked with Washington Sundar getting into the wickets, and they didn't feel the absence of Kuldeep Yadav, and some way Arshdeep Singh's absence was also not felt. And then because Akashdeep also clicked and everything went for them, so that's where they were not much criticized after the test match, even though they lost the test match. But this time I think they went too far with their Vijay team selection in their obsession for going for batters who can just be on paper called bowlers. The things have really turned ugly for and nasty for them, and they have been really hurt badly in this test, because they are hardly giving ball to Shardul Thakur to bowl. Shardul has just bowled 11 overs, even though India was chasing the leather from the beginning of the day. And what to say about Washington Sundar, your main bowler in the second innings at Lord's Test, who took 4 wickets, who had such a massive impact on English batters. English batter must have been psychologically impacted, and yet after 69 overs you handed the ball to him. It was not that the Simmers had taken already 8 wickets and you didn't feel the need to give the ball. England were just 2 wickets down at the end of 69 overs, and they were in such a formidable position. You could have just given it as a matter of experimentation, even if you didn't have confidence on Washington Sundar. But captain didn't have any trust. He didn't give him the ball till 69th over, and just look at him. Within 5 overs, he took 2 wickets to at least put some pressure on England, and reduced England from 2 down to 4 down, and at least managed to open up the game to a certain extent for India. It's a different thing that after that India didn't manage to polish up the middle order or the lower middle order of England team. So Washington Sundar, who has been always effective against the quality side, he proved it against New Zealand here at home. He also did it at Lord's, but he was not given a ball till 69th over, but you have been playing. That means you are playing him just as a batter. So just imagine playing a number 8 player as a batter, and just don't just ignore the bowling. Same thing with Shardul Thakur. You didn't give him the ball for a long time, and ultimately he ended up just bowling 11 overs. So ultimately you just felt you were playing with 3 bowlers, Siraj, Bumrah and Jadeja, who bowled around 87 overs out of the 133, 134 overs that you have bowled. So that clearly shows that you don't have trust and confidence on the number 4, number 5 bowlers. And more bizarre thing is your number 2 or number 3 simmer, that is Anshul Kamboj. Logic said that you should have played Prasidh Krishna, who had already played, who has already got used to the English condition, who has been your experienced bowler, who has been traveling with you for a long time, who has had some success in Australia and who would have been more confident to deliver and knowing how to bowl on those English pitches, what line and length to maintain. He has the pace, he has the bounce. He could have been really a helpful and handy proposition for you in Akashdeep's absence. But you decided to play Anshul Kamboj, whom you just called into the team at the last minute after you found Arshdeep being injured. And then what you did, you took him straight into the playing 11 instead of Prasidh Krishna. And it was unfortunate that his pace was around 128 to 132 most of the time. So at 128 to 130 kilometers per hour, without much control over the line and length, and with a lot of nerves playing his first test, he was actually a real easy scapegoat to be blaming. But then you can't help but to blame the team management for selecting him, because he was a cannon fodder for the likes of Dockett and Crawley, who love to go after the bowlers when they get a chance, and they try to put pressure and have a psychological advantage over the bowlers. And Anshul Kamboj was the easy meat for them because he was making his debut. He was still struggling to put his ball at the right place, and when Dockett started going after him, he actually crumbled. And that's where your one major bowler was ruled out of the equation. But what you did, you asked him to bowl with a new ball. You could have still kept him for the number 3 position, and you could have started the bowling with your most experienced bowlers Bumrah and Siraj yesterday. You didn't do that. You asked him to bowl. He was put under severe pressure. The run rate skyrocketed to 5.5, and immediately at the time when actually you brought Siraj, by that time England had already crossed 50 with a massively high run rate, and Dockett and Crawley were in a murderous position and moved. So they were not going to then be cased by Siraj coming back and with a spell as a number 3 bowler. So you did a blunder there. And again today morning also, when you took the new ball finally after 92 overs and Bumrah had to go out of the ground for some reason, you gave the ball to Anshul Kamboj instead of giving it to maybe Shardul Thakur, or at least trying with Jadeja with a slightly new and harder ball where he could have been more effective. But you gave him, and then the new ball was wasted because the overs he bowled, he was more economical, but he didn't have the kind of bite or the incisiveness to create any wicket taking opportunity, and that's where the initiative was lost. So a lot of issues with Indian bowling. It was ordinary yesterday. It was slightly better, but it was toothless. The conditions were not also in favor of Indian bowling, and the bowling changes and the team selection were bizarre. So those things contributed, and of course you have to give credit to the English batter, especially Joe Root, Dockett and Crawley yesterday, Joe Root today, Pope today, and finally Ben Stokes. What an inspirational player he is. He showed why it should be always a performance at crucial points and crucial moments and crucial games. That should be the criteria to judge who is a great player and who is not, rather than just cold statistics or some cold facts or some cold stats. That is never going to be the case, because you will never be able to realize the greatness of a person. A person's statistics may not be as impressive as everybody, as what you expect from the superstars, but he can be a GOAT, he can be a great player if he knows how to deliver at the big moments, putting his body on line and stretching himself for the cause of the team. And Ben Stokes has been that player. If you remember, the series started with Shubman Gill and Ben Stokes as the two skippers on whom a lot depended. And then Shubman Gill had a dream start where he scored 3 mighty centuries, and that included one mega double century in the first 4 innings. And he was the most impressive player as a captain, and his performance was so brilliant. And Ben Stokes had the ordinary batting performance, and with bowling he was impressive, but his batting was not at all anything to take note of, and he was not visible as a really inspirational figure to really lead by example as a captain. But come the third test onwards, now everything has changed. Shubman Gill has faded away slowly and has not contributed much with the bat, whereas Ben Stokes has become the key figure and the fulcrum of this English team. He has become the maximum wicket taker for England team, and he has been now improving with every innings as a batter. And even though he's not at his fluency best, he's still not managing to read Bumrah or Jadeja to the best of his ability, but he has ensured that he plays like a captain. He applies. He is not even bothered to grind his way back into the pitch at the pitch, and he also doesn't mind looking little ugly or nasty or tentative. But so long as he's digging in there and he's contributing for his team, he is happy, and he has done that in the last test at Lords. He bowled 44 overs and took 5 wickets across the 2 innings. That included a marathon bowling effort on the 5th day morning where he bowled non-stop for 15 to 17 overs. And then with the bat also, he batted brilliantly, even though not looking at like a great batter, but he made some useful contribution in terms of 44 in the first innings and 33 in the second innings, where they were all out for just 192 runs, and he ensured his 33 were really crucial. And in the fourth test at Manchester, he bowled 24 overs. He stressed his body, he put his body on the line, and he took 5 wickets to really become the recurring chief for England against India, and ensured India was finally reduced to 358 instead of 400. And then with the bat, he again managed to grind it out, and then is unbeaten at 75 at the end of the day. And if he gets some good company, and if his cramps get healed by tomorrow, he can go on to even reach 100, and that would be a fantastic knock, a match-winning knock. And what a great all-rounders performance that would be if they go on to win this test match. So yes, he has led by example with his captaincy, with his team selection, with his bowling changes, with his application, with his own performances, and he has been a great leader. And one cannot forget his brilliant run out of Rishabh Pant in the last test. So wherever it's possible, he's contributing at the big moments to make sure that he remains at the limelight, and he sets the right example for the team, and he inspires the team. So this time again he has delivered, and he has ensured that he would be remembered as one of the best captains England ever had in the modern day cricket. So let us wait for the tomorrow's game to see whether India can claw their way back into some extent in this test match, or England would put a really nail on the coffin of India's fortune by sealing the game tomorrow itself. We will find it out tomorrow. Thank you.